if the country is not worth protecting, it is not worth claiming. Coming up. On July the 6th, when Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi delivered those explosive findings about the corrupt police officials that were involved with criminal cartels, together with ANC corrupt officials, after multiple times Mkhwanazi trying to follow the correct protocol but to no avail, the ANC jumped in defense of their corrupt officials, political officials, and of course in defense of the criminal cartels.
We have issued a brief statement. These are grave accusations by a police commissioner, which borders on lawlessness, and the state of our law enforcement agencies is worrisome, and we have full confidence that the president will deal with these matters with all the powers vested in him. The police force can't communicate things of this nature. We put a blind eye to that.
And Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi went further, expressing how SAPS is underfunded and them not having enough equipments to perform their intelligence and to be able to do their job at the best of their abilities. And when you are listening to Mkhwanazi thoroughly, you notice that the equipments that were short, that the SAPS didn't have, were always in favor of criminal cartel to be able to move goods or people or whatever from one place to another. Any equipments that had anything to do with transporting equipments or stuff from one province to another, those equipments were lacking. Is that a coincidence?
You think we have a national crisis at hand?
Yes, we do. We do. Why I say that is because we have only one scanner in the port that takes about 3,000 containers into the country. We scan less than 10% of them as they come in. God knows what in those containers are. Children have been trafficked. Illicit goods are moving into those containers. We only have one scanner that sees what's inside when that truck travels on that road, on that entry.
Do you think that is intentional?
Executive must help us. If portfolio committee and everyone else that helps us to say, how are we prioritizing? What is your plan to deal with drugs? What about this? What about that? And where do you allocate your budget? Then we could be talking now. Instead of when we are saying, why are you buying that property? Why are you using the finance to go and invest in that event? Why don't you buy this resource? You have a truck picking up goods here in Cape Town. It travels from Cape Town with a container until it reaches deep in Johannesburg. It passes 10 roadblocks on the road because there's a lock on the back of that container. It doesn't get searched. Nobody opens it. It leaves Cape Town 1,500 kilometers to Johannesburg without being searched. And we don't have means to do it. And we need budget. It doesn't cost a lot of money to buy these scanners, but there's no will to buy them. And nobody pays attention.
And on February this year, 2025, we lost 13 soldiers, SADF soldiers, in the war at DRC. And during the funeral of those soldiers, Major General Peter Nchabeni, spoke on that funeral, expressing his anger and his concern about the lack of funding done by politicians. And just like General Mkhwanazi, he also complained about the lack of equipment for the SADF to perform their duties as a national defense force. And just like General Mkhwanazi, General Nchabeni also used that funeral to vent out after, of course, the following the protocol route hasn't worked.
What I'm going to say here, I may be trampling on some cones, so please pardon me, Premier, and the parliamentarians that are here. All of you know that South Africa, in its position in the world, we are a global player. In Africa, we are the leader in terms of economics and geopolitics. And therefore, we are considered a big brother. No, you cannot be a big brother if you are unable to wield a stick. that will make people be afraid. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is he talking about and all that? How many of you will build a beautiful and expensive house and not fence it and protect it? I don't think none of you will do that. Constitutionally, the South African National Defence Force is mandated to protect and defend the country. Now, any home will display its character, its worthiness, by the level of security that it places around it. Now, if we're going to play Big Brother in Africa, and therefore what we give for the Defence Force should symbolize that. A lot has been said about the South African National Defence Force not being well equipped, not being resourced and all that. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm saying, and I'm appealing to the politicians that are here, that next time you sit down and debate, think whether you are protected or not. Because that grant that you're giving to the people out there, the education of your children and everything else will not materialize if you're not protected. I'm sure many of you know that we are sharing our grant for the poor with people who are not supposed to share the grant. And that is because we are not protected. Our borders are porous. And they're porous because you, the politicians, have decided you want a Mickey Mouse Defence Force. I'm sorry to say that. And by the way, the Adjutant General is here. I'm protected. I'm not making a political speech, by the way.
And guess who came out crushing General Nchabeni? Of course, in defense of the ANC. The MEC, Dakota Lekwete. The ANC MEC. He came out crushing Nchabeni to a point where he even blamed Nchabeni of incompetence. Imagine that. Turning a total blind eye from what Nchabeni was trying to say. But he just went for the man. Dakota just went for the man, questioning the man's mental capacity.
Do you agree with the sentiments being expressed there by the Surgeon General that our Commander-in-Chief, President Cyril Ramaphosa, is essentially presiding over a Mickey Mouse defense force that has been created by politicians?
Thank you very much, Aldrin, and good morning to all the viewers at home. I think I have to start by saying that it's just unfortunate that the General could not sense the occasion which he was addressing. It was a funeral where we are mourning the fallen heroes of our National Defence Force and the pride of our nation who passed on in the DRC in defense of peace in the region, in the country, international. Now, it's just unfortunate, of course, a general is a person of privilege who sits in the military command council, which is responsible for the security of the country on a daily basis and paid by the taxpayers. Now, it's just unfortunate that a general would say some of these things in an occasion which is not supposed to say, because it was only last week where we had the minister and the chief of the National Defence Force appearing before the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. We did ask the chief of the National Defence Force, General Mapanya, that is the country safe? It's our borders safe? The chief of the Defence Force guaranteed us as a portfolio committee only now to realize that one of his subordinates, who's the Lieutenant General, is saying something different. We can't have the army top brass speaking in folk tongues in a country where people are depressed, there's high unemployment, people are anxious, hysteric, and somebody who's supposed to defend us and protect us is saying something different. This general, some of our generals must now start to account because they need to appreciate the fact that the army now sees the death of 14 of our soldiers in DRC. The army and the National Defence Force is going to be on spotlight. We have to improve our military-civilian relations, and some of our generals need to help us to communicate positive stories on the defense of the country, on the safety of the country, on the safety of our borders, because a general is not a person who can cry. We can have a crying general who has the responsibility to defend the sovereignty as well as the territorial integrity of the country. Complaining, we can't have such generals.
Yeah.
I think we can do better in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, but then considering that you heard what General Maphanya, who is the chief of the South African National Defence Force, was telling Parliament, and what the the Surgeon General was telling mourners at that funeral, who do you believe in that particular case? Because surely there's something wrong and there's something amiss. And he even he had a precursor to the statement that he was going to make, and saying that you have politicians that are in or that are among the mourners at the time, and also that he has the defense of one of the senior military veterans who was also in the room at the time. So meaning that he's speaking from a position of, I know what I'm saying, I have experienced this, and this is the current reality of South Africa's National Defence Force, and not what was shared with parliamentarians by General Maphanya.
Look, we have limitations as parliamentarians. Ours is to play oversight on the executive as well as on the administration. So a general sits in the military command council to plan and to execute the defense of the country on a daily basis. So by inference, if a general speaks like this, he's either naive or incompetent or does not know his work.
This made me realize that the reason why a crime has increased in such a way that it seems like, or it feels like, the defense force is not even in control anymore. You can even check by the level of our weapons. We have been highly manipulated to an extent that we are only able to use SAR, which is South African rifle, a very weakest weapon ever to ever exist and can be used by soldiers. We don't even get a chance to train AK-47 weapons that are very much essentially powerful for the defense of the country.
And just recently, another general came on the surface. South African Navy Chief Admiral Lobese, and spoke just like General Mkhwanazi, just like General Nchabeni. And Admiral Lobese also spoke about what? Lack of funding of our South African Navy. Imagine that.
Today, as the country, we are battling the high pollution of illegal immigrants. Our society and the future of our kids is being destroyed by drugs which gets into their hands through the seas. I invite you to read an article which was recently published on the Defense Web titled Opinion, Between Two Oceans and the South African Navy in Crisis, written by Nicholas Gotzel, a member of Parliament, who is a member of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense. In there, he makes mention that, and I quote, various stakeholders in society tend to see expenditure on defense as being detrimental to expenditure in an economic realm. Yet, a robust defense force is essential to protect sovereignty, secure 80% of trade through maritime routes, support domestic stability, and lead African peacekeeping missions. Ultimately, a strong and capable defense force remains a core component of ensuring internal and external stability and safeguarding the conditions for positive economic outcomes, close quote. For our cabinet to approve the reduction of the SNDF workforce or strength is actually nothing far from telling us to implement a defense version of what General Mkhwanazi has disclosed in the Madlanga Commission with regards to the closure of the political killing task team. Closing down the SNDF is like having a house without walls, effective CCTV systems, and reaction capability should thieves violate your space uninvited, or buying a car and not taking an insurance, or not having a life cover for yourself and family.
And guess who came to defend the ANC criminal cartels? Yep. ANC, Dakota Lekwete.
Mr. Lekwete, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. It's not the first time that Vice-Admiral Lobese has said these words about the weakening of the South African military. What's your reaction?
it's quite concerning that there's such a concern from our generals, but our only concern as the Portfolio Committee is the platform in which the general raises such issues, because general sits in the Military Command Council. Through their minister, they sit in the National Security Council, and generals have an opportunity through the president, who is the commander-in-chief and the general of all generals, to engage on such issues. The only problem is that matters of national security cannot be discussed in gala dinners, they cannot be discussed in funerals, they cannot be discussed in parties. There are relevant platforms and institutions where they can be discussed, because national security is something that you can't even go on a verbal diarrhea on it. It's something that you need to act on it. And we are of the view as a Portfolio Committee, even though we agree with the contents of what he's saying, our major concern as the Portfolio Committee is where he says it. And it's very wrong, because it gives credence to some international espionage and foreign intelligence agencies to understand what is happening in our country.
The first time he said, or he expressed his worries around this, was it not at the Portfolio Committee?
No, we have not engaged. We have engaged with the rest of the team, from the Chief of the National Defence Force, the Chief of Staff, the Secretary of Defence, on matters related to the underfunding. Myself as the chairperson, I even raised this particular matter, that it was wrong for government in the past to have made wrong policy choices. For instance, taking funds of the National Defence Force to go and bail out SOEs, to go and pay for fees must fall.
So you're suggesting, as you sit here tonight, that none of these concerns have ever been brought to Parliament, for example, which is where you sit?
No, they have been brought to Parliament, I must be honest with you.
So they have?
Yeah, they have.
Wow. He wanted to deny it, right? He wanted to deny the whole thing, that the general did come to Parliament.
The only problem is that Parliament is seized with these particular matters. We have engaged the presidency, we have engaged Treasury. Even last week, we had a meeting between the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Defence as part of our engagement with them to try to increase the quantum of what it's allocated to the defence.
Yep. And just like he did with the General Nchabeni, Dakota came and crushed Admiral Lobese to a point where he even questioned his competence. Again, totally turning a blind eye on what a man is saying, and went for a man questioning him whether he's competent or not. So, do you think all that is just a coincidence? No. So that's how ANC is making sure that they destabilize our national security, so that the criminal cartel and whatever they're trafficking, whether it's humans, whether it's drugs, can just get in and out and in and out of our country with ease. What do you think? Let me have your comment. Let me have your comment below. And of course, if you are coming for the first time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.